Jasper, your definition of stability is very different to our definition of stability. And I think strong leaders and a lot of local support, even in countries where you have a high level of unrest.
Response be if the United States Congress does pass a piece of legislation setting up new sanctions? So a sanctions bill by the United States Congress will unravel the negotiations.
But a sanctions bill by the US Congress will kill the joint plan of action that we adopted last year in Geneva. Now, the President of the United States has the power to veto it, but our parliament will have its counteraction.
And that legislation, this retaliatory legislation, would do what?
I don't know. I mean, it's up to our parliamentarians. They have threatened publicly that if the US Congress were to adopt a legislation, they will adopt something requiring the government that if new sanctions were actually imposed on Iran, that we will increase our enrichment. Mm-hmm. There are other requirements that Iran has for even higher grade enrichment, and they are asking for that. So there are all sorts of possibilities, and I do not want to entertain them because I believe there is a possibility, a very good probability of reaching an agreement, and we should not waste that opportunity.
But it was very interesting to hear that you talked quite a lot about the impact of the oil factor on the sanctions and what the sanction did to your country. And earlier you told us that sanction didn't have any effect on your country. So this is contradictory,
no
I think.
effect on policy.
Oh, I think they had an effect on policy because I think the negotiations would never, ever have been at the place where they are, thanks God, right now, if we wouldn't have had the sanctions, because obviously the sanctions had an impact on your country.
Sanctions did not bring the government to the negotiating table. If sanctions had brought this government to the negotiating table, now we would have moved away from the negotiating table. They didn't. We want to change the nature, the dynamics of our relations, and I think everybody will be better off if that happens.
Call an end to this part of the conversation, although if the two of you would like to stay after and continue, you're more than welcome.